Welcome back. In this lecture, let's learn to load the data from Postgres database to SQL Server database. I have a table called countries in Postgres database. I have a table countries in SQL Server database as well, where the table is empty. Let's load the dataset from Postgres table to SQL Server table. Let's design a code. Load PostgreSql to SQL Server. Let's import psychopg2 in order to establish connection with Postgres database. Let's import piodbc to connect with SQL Server. Let us also import config parser to get the database credentials from config file. Let's create a class. Load. Let's define an init method to have connection and cursor properties. Def init self dot PostgreSql connection is equal to none. Self dot PostgreSql cursor equal to none. Self dot SQL Server connection is equal to none. Self dot SQL Server cursor is equal to none. Let us also define configuration properties. Self dot config is equal to config parser dot config parser. Self dot config dot read configuration file. Credentials.cfg. Let's define Postgres database connection. Def PostgreSql connection self dot PostgreSql connection is equal to Postgres database properties self dot PostgreSql cursor is equal to self dot PostgreSql connection dot cursor. Let's define the connection with SQL Server. Def SQL Server connection self dot SQL Server connection is equal to database properties of SQL Server self dot SQL Server cursor is equal to self dot SQL Server connection dot cursor. Now let's define a method to extract the data from Postgres database. Def PostgreSql extract. Let's get the connection self dot PostgreSql connection self dot PostgreSql cursor dot execute. Select asterisk from countries. Data is equal to self dot PostgreSql cursor dot fetch all. Let's return the data. Return row for row in data. Let's print and see the result. Let's create an object. ETL is equal to load print object name ETL dot method name PostgreSql extract. Data is being retrieved. Let's print the records in new line. For row in ETL dot PostgreSql extract print row. Let's define the method to insert the data into SQL Server database. Def SQL Server insert. Let's get the SQL Server connection. Let's say values is equal to the result of PostgreSql extract. Self dot PostgreSql extract. Let's define the query. Insert into dataflow.dbo.countries. Country ID, country name, region ID, values, question mark, question mark, question mark, according to the number of columns. For row in values, self dot SQL Server cursor dot execute query, comma, row. Let's commit the records. Self dot SQL Server connection dot commit. Let's call SQL Server insert method. ETL dot method name. Let's execute the code. Code is successful. Let's check the table. Data is successfully inserted. Thank you. See you in the next lecture.